Hello and welcome. My name is Will Ortega, and this is Tips and Tricks with ProPricer. We'll cover useful tips in ProPricer to help you leverage your time better and get things priced. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 3-point estimating. What is 3-point estimating? It is a ProPricer feature that calculates the best case scenario, most likely scenario, and the worst case scenario for your proposal, allowing you to account for risk and other factors. The best case scenario assumes that production proceeds better than expected. The worst case scenario assumes that everything goes worse than expected. And the most likely scenario assumes that everything goes according to plan. Overall, 3-point estimating is a useful method for analyzing proposal data. Its results can also be used in Monte Carlo simulation software for further evaluation. Before we can begin using 3-point estimating, it must be enabled in the proposal properties. So let's go ahead and navigate to the proposal properties. Click the 3-point estimating page. And here, you can enable or disable the feature. On this page, you can also control how the best case and worst case scenarios are calculated by default. As you can see, the top of the page allows you to enter a percentage of the original proposal price that will equal the best case and the worst case. Currently, a factor of 0.8 is entered for the best case, and a factor of 1.1 is entered for the worst case, meaning that by default, the best case will be 20% cheaper than the proposal price, and the worst case will be 10% more expensive than the proposal price. There is also a section down here called Factor Definition, where you can create base case and worst case factor for specific categories of proposal data, such as resources, resource classes, and resource types. Any factors that are entered for the proposal data category at this level will override the default best case and worst case factors above. Also, let me quickly point out the priority column over here. This column shows the order that ProPricer uses to determine which factor definition to apply first. The value in this column cannot be directly edited, but the order can be changed by selecting a row and clicking the arrows below the grid to move it to a higher or lower priority. For this episode's example, I have created 2 factor definitions with a resource type category, and we have labor and material as their elements. Now, in order to use 3-point estimating to its fullest potential, I've created a resource field called Confidence Level Rating with a predefined values from 1 to 9. Each of these values is associated with a specific best case and worst case factor. Notice that the best case and worst case factors for value 1 are 50% and 200%. Now, when I select this value for the resource field in the factor definitions area of the 3-point estimating, its corresponding best case and worst case factors are applied to the factor definition. In the case of this example, it'll be all resources with a resource type labor. Let's go ahead and do that now. First, I'll select this factor definition with a resource type labor and give it a confidence level rating of 1. Remember, this means that the best case is 50% and the worst case is 200%. Now that the factor definition is established, I'll click OK and navigate to the Proposals Resource tab in the Task view. Let's add a labor type resource to task number 1, Combat Systems, and let's give it a spread amount of 20 hours in December 20th. Next, let's analyze the details. If we click the 3-point estimating tab, we can see that the columns for the best case, most likely, and worst case show the estimates for each resource. By selecting our resource, we can see 10 hours for the best case, 20 hours for the most likely, and 40 hours for the worst case. These are calculated using the factor definition that we associated with that resource field earlier. Now let's talk about the columns in this expected section. The estimates in this column represent what is expected based on the best case and worst case scenarios. These estimates are different than the most likely estimates because they are calculated using the following formula, which takes into account the best case and worst case and most likely scenarios. Expected value equals best case plus 4 times most likely plus worst case, all this divided by 6. Given this formula, the expected estimate for a resource, which has a discrete input of 20, is calculated like this. Expected value equals 10 plus 4 times 20 plus 40, all this divided by 6, which comes out to 21.6. With rounding, this goes up to 22. As you can see, the expected estimate is 22. Also, the total bar at the bottom of the workspace shows the sum of the estimates in each column. If data is grouped in this grid, you will see a subtotal bar under each group. Now, let's assume that these estimates are not correct, and we need to override the factors. The simplest way to do this is to right-click the task grid, point to Show Columns, point to 3-point estimating, then select All. Now we can see the best case factor and worst case factor for each task. Select task number 1 and enter 0.9 as a new best case factor and 1.2 as a new worst case factor. Now, the inputs have changed based on the new factors that have been applied. In order to see all the 3-point estimating scenarios and their details, a report called 3-point detail cost breakdown can be ran. This report brings each of the 3-point estimates and the expected estimates on a yearly, quarterly, or monthly basis. Let's go ahead and run this report with summary as the summary field and none as the time scale. Now, I'll select Print to Excel and export it with full pricing. You can now see the data in detail in the Excel worksheets. The TPE factors, pricing sheet for the best, pricing sheet for the worst, and the pricing sheet for the expected. Also, you can access this data by navigating to the 3-point estimating view that shows estimates, expected values, and summarized information for all resources used in the proposal. Remember that this is for information only and cannot be edited. In review today's episodes of Tips and Tricks, 3-point estimating allows you to define 4 types of estimates for accomplishing a task or activity. Now you will hopefully have a better understanding of the 3-point estimating process. Remember, the expected estimate is a weighted average that considers all 3 of the other types of estimates. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your colleagues who uses ProPricer. If you have any questions about ProPricer or maybe even some tips and tricks of your own, please email us directly. Who knows? Your tip might just end up in our next video. Again, my name is Will Ortega, and as always, thanks for watching.